Nick knew the blackout was coming 17 minutes. And during that time, 2 lives were stolen, a family shattered, and a secret hidden for decades may have just been uncovered. But the most chilling part? The voice captured during those final moments didn't belong to anyone they knew, and the person responsible is still out there. The night of the Reiner murders didn't begin like a typical tragedy. From the outside, the estate looked quiet, almost serene, the kind of calm that makes horror more terrifying. But inside, something had been quietly building for weeks, a tension that no security camera, no alarm system, no witness could fully capture. Nick, the estranged son, had been pacing through the house earlier that evening, hyperventilating, overwhelmed, a panic attack triggered by a heated conversation with his sister Michelle. That's what his defense claimed. Yet, the prosecutors had data, a timeline of biometric stress readings from his wearable devices, and the numbers didn't lie. For weeks, Nick's vitals had never spiked like this, and suddenly, at the exact moment both Rob and Michelle were killed, his heart rate surged, his body in a state of alarm that aligned perfectly with the blackout window. Coincidence? Investigators didn't think so. The security blackout itself was unprecedented. Cameras, alarms, and motion sensors, everything failed within seconds of a motion alert that no one could explain. A voice, threatening and unfamiliar, was recorded in the moments before the murders, one that didn't belong to Nick. And then there was Leonard Rovich, a subcontracted technician with full system access, who vanished after performing a routine upgrade. Everything pointed to a meticulously orchestrated event. 17 minutes. Clean, precise, almost surgical. And within those 17 minutes, 2 lives were extinguished while the estate's defenses were rendered useless. The chilling thought investigators wrestled with was someone inside already manipulating the systems before the blackout even started? Then came a detail that sent ripples through the case. Phone records revealed that Rob had attempted a call at 9:16 p.m., 3 minutes into the blackout. The recipient? Catherine Ray, a journalist at the Los Angeles Chronicle. She was someone he had confided in just days prior, warning her he had evidence that could expose powerful people. But the call never connected. The signal appeared disrupted, possibly jammed. That single missed connection added a new layer of dread. Rob had information he desperately wanted to share, and he didn't make it. Investigators began retracing his last steps, scanning emails, text messages, and cloud backups, piecing together a puzzle of fear, secrecy, and intimidation that stretched beyond anything the family had publicly revealed. Meanwhile, Romy Reiner, the last surviving family member, had remained silent since her parents' funeral. She had been portrayed as grieving quietly, distant from the media circus surrounding the trial and speculation. But 2 days after the service, she stepped forward with a letter from Nick, 4 pages of erratic handwriting, crossed-out sentences, and fragmented thoughts. Nick claimed he hadn't acted alone, that he had tried to stop what happened, but ultimately, he was powerless. In the margins of the letter, a single name: Leo. Investigators immediately connected that to Leonard Rovich, the missing technician, the man with access to the estate's security. Suddenly, the story that seemed to be a straightforward family tragedy became a labyrinth of threats, unseen participants, and chilling premonitions. Even as Romy handed over the letter, more revelations came to light. Cryptic texts and late-night voice memos sent to her by Nick revealed his growing terror in the weeks leading up to the murders. Messages like, "They're here for Dad. It's going to happen tonight," once dismissed as paranoia, now held a weight that could not be ignored. One 9-second voice memo the night before the blackout left investigators reeling. Nick's voice was urgent, almost panicked. "They're not here for me anymore. They're here for Dad." That simple line reframed the timeline of events, connecting the biometric spikes, the missing technician, the mysterious voice, and the blackout into a narrative that could no longer be ignored. And just when the investigation seemed to reach a peak of tension, Romy's revelations hinted at another layer entirely. Hidden flash drives, encrypted audio, and unsent email drafts showed that Rob and Michelle were not blindsided. They were bracing, strategizing, and terrified. Michelle's draft, titled Plan B, unsent and left unfinished, ended mid-sentence, "I don't want Romy to." The unfinished thought haunted detectives. Protect Romy from what? And who was orchestrating the threat that made even Rob Reiner, a man known for fearlessness, hesitate? Every unanswered question stacked upon the next, creating a crescendo of suspense that would carry investigators and viewers into an increasingly complex web of secrets, betrayal, and silent danger. By the time Romy handed the letter to LAPD detectives, the Reiner case had already escalated from a shocking double homicide to a story of calculated terror, silent warnings, and unseen players. Nick's handwritten words were erratic, fragmented, almost desperate, but one name in the margin stood out. Leo. Just 3 letters scrawled in the chaos of the page, yet it was the thread that investigators believed could unravel everything. Their next step was obvious: track Leo, understand who he was, and uncover what he did. And the deeper they dug, the more unsettling the picture became. Leonard Rovich, the subcontracted security technician, had been performing routine upgrades for Everguard Secure, the company responsible for the Reiner estate's state-of-the-art system. But his disappearance immediately after the blackout, carrying an external hard drive, made him more than a technician. He became a phantom inside a story where every second counted. Emails and timestamps that Rob and Michelle had left behind only confirmed the suspicion someone with access, knowledge, and intent had orchestrated the chaos. Rob had even warned Michelle weeks prior, sending her a single line that still haunted investigators: Leo is not who he says he is. Look into it. That one cryptic message, never followed up with an explanation, now demanded answers. Then came the voice memos. Nick had been sending them to Romy for weeks, messages dismissed at the time as paranoia, now chillingly prescient. One memo the night before the blackout lasted only 9 seconds. Nick's voice was strained. Urgent, they're not here for me anymore. They're here for Dad. It's going to happen tonight. Every investigator who heard it later agreed the tone wasn't hallucination or fear overblown. It was knowledge. Knowledge that the attack was imminent. Knowledge that the security blackout, the disappearance of Leo, and the murders were all connected. The line between panic and awareness blurred, leaving questions that had no immediate answers. Who was they? And why was Nick powerless to prevent it? Even more revealing was the hidden flash drive discovered in Michelle's jewelry box. Unlabeled, encrypted, and easy to miss, it contained a single audio file named Our Final Call.mpp3. When investigators finally decrypted it, Michelle's voice whispered through the speakers, calm but unmistakably afraid. "I'm making this in case something happens. Rob won't stop. Nick says we're being watched." The implication was staggering. Weeks of surveillance, invisible threats, and internal conflict had been quietly building to a moment that Michelle had documented, fully aware that no one might survive to hear it. Every word, every pause, every breath painted a picture of fear that was no longer hypothetical. It was recorded in real time. Curiosity rehooked, but the most chilling part? The final line of Michelle's recording wasn't a prediction. It was a warning: if anything happens, it wasn't an accident. That simple sentence reframed every piece of evidence investigators had accumulated. This wasn't a spontaneous act of violence. Someone had planned it. Someone had controlled the timeline. And somehow, Nick had been caught in the middle, aware yet unable to stop the catastrophe. Emails added yet another layer. Rob and Michelle's private correspondence revealed careful observation, strategic planning, and a growing sense of dread. From November 12th, Michelle warned Rob about a man parked outside their gate, 3rd time in a week, pretending to be on his phone. Rob's response indicated concern, but not panic. Then, 3 weeks before the murders, he sent that single, loaded message to Michelle: "Leo is not who he says he is. Look into it." It was the only reference to Leonard Rovich in their entire correspondence. No follow-up, no clarification, just a breadcrumb. And that silence created questions worse than answers. Was Rob erasing the trail deliberately, or had someone else accessed their accounts to remove evidence? Even Michelle's unsent draft titled Plan B, written 5 days before her death, ended mid-thought: "I don't want Romy to." Investigators are left asking, protect Romy from what, exactly? The sentence never finished, the draft never sent, leaving only the fragments of a family's fear and uncertainty. And in that fractured communication, the story of Leo, the missing technician, the security blackout, and Nick's frantic messages started to form a sinister pattern, a pattern that investigators realized was far larger and far darker than they had initially imagined.
You know, Billy Crystal and Rob and William, I mean, whoever it was, and when Albert would start, that if everybody cleared the floor and they let him go, because it was like genius.
The night of January 7th was meant to be ordinary, a quiet evening at the Reiner estate, but within minutes, everything collapsed. A total security blackout, precisely 17 minutes long, swallowed the estate's cameras, sensors, and communications. It was the kind of precision that no ordinary intruder could achieve. Investigators later realized that this blackout was not a technical glitch. It was deliberate, calculated, and synchronized down to the second. Nick's earlier draft email 17 minutes is all they need suddenly took on a new, terrifying clarity. He hadn't been panicking. He had been warning. Inside the estate, Rob attempted to place a call at 9:16 p.m., just 3 minutes into the blackout. It wasn't to emergency services, it was to investigative journalist Catherine Ray, a trusted confidant. The line never connected. Forensic analysis suggests it was jammed or intercepted. What was Rob trying to reveal in those final seconds? What truth was he so desperate to send before silence claimed him? 3 days prior, Rob had spoken to Catherine about information that could expose influential figures. That meeting never happened, and in that absence, the house became a trap, the darkness a silent accomplice. Then came the audio captured by Patricia Avery's home assistant next door. At first, the recording seemed inconsequential, muffled voices, movement, the kind of sound easily dismissed. But as forensic experts amplified and isolated the audio, the clarity emerged. A male voice, calm and unwavering. They told you to stop. He told you to stop, but you wouldn't, would you? A female voice, believed to be Michelle. This is our home. You're trespassing. Rob's voice. You don't scare me. That's the problem. And then a scream, shattering glass, footsteps rushing, and then silence. The voices weren't Nick's. They weren't Rob or Michelle's. Someone else had been inside. Someone who had the audacity and precision to carry out the plan while everyone else was trapped in fear and confusion. Curiosity rehook. Who was that voice? How had they bypassed every layer of security, every system that Rob and Michelle had painstakingly installed? And most haunting of all, why has that person never been identified, never confronted, never brought to justice? The unanswered question hangs over the case like a shadow, forcing investigators to revisit timelines, logs, and testimonies. Every door, every camera, every motion sensor had been accounted for except for that window of 17 minutes. That gap, that silence, contained the truth no one could yet articulate. Even Nick's biometric data complicates the story. Heart rate spikes during the exact window of the blackout suggest intense physical stress, pacing, hyperventilating, struggling, but what does it truly mean? Was he a participant, a pawn, or a witness trapped by forces beyond his control? And then there's the letter Romy handed over, with lines so fragmented they almost feel like a confession. I didn't want it to happen this way. I begged them to leave. I wasn't in control anymore. Every word hints at a network of actors, a plan executed with deadly precision, and a family caught in its center. The blackout, the missed call, the audio recording, and Nick's warning draft form a sequence no one can ignore. It is a pattern of foreknowledge, not fear. And as investigators tried to map it all, one chilling reality emerged: someone orchestrated the murders in real time. Someone with intimate knowledge of the family, the estate, and the security system. And yet, that someone remains unpunished, their identity buried in silence.
No, there's so much funny stuff that happens in rehab, and a lot of funny people. Like, it's tragic and all, but the people that are there are not going to want you to throw them a pity party. They're going to want you to laugh at the situation and make light of it.
After the blackout, the Reiner estate was left in chaos, a house frozen in terror and unanswered questions. Investigators immediately returned to digital evidence, emails, and Nick's messages, trying to reconstruct the final hours. Weeks later, Romy Reiner stepped forward, breaking a silence that had weighed heavily on the family. She handed over a handwritten letter from Nick, left in her mailbox the night before the funeral. For pages of fragmented sentences, crossed-out thoughts, and jagged scribbles revealed a shocking truth. Nick claimed he did not act alone. "I begged them to leave. I wasn't in control anymore," he wrote. The letter suggested a network of actors, a plan beyond a single person's capacity, and a premeditation more intricate than investigators had imagined. Then came Michelle's hidden flash drive, discovered just days before the murders. It contained a single audio file timestamped 3 days prior. Michelle's voice, calm but clearly frightened, whispered, "I'm making this in case something happens. Nick says we're being watched." The recording confirmed what investigators had begun to suspect: this was not a random attack. The family had known they were in danger. They had tried to document it. And yet, the threats remained unanswered. Rob's final emails, drafts never sent, and failed calls to Catherine Ray revealed a desperate attempt to protect the truth, to ensure that someone, somewhere, would know what was coming. Every discovery added a layer of tension. Leonard Rovich, the subcontractor with access to the estate's systems, appeared repeatedly across Nick's letters and Rob's emails. Leo, the shadowy figure, was more than a technician. He was a key piece of the puzzle. Security logs, access data, and the blackout all pointed to someone with intimate knowledge of the estate's inner workings. The mystery deepened. If Leo had the capability, was Nick a willing participant, a scared pawn, or both? And crucially, why had no one confronted him yet? The neighbor's recording, finally analyzed, delivered the most chilling revelation. The voices in the Reiner home were not entirely those of the family. A male voice, calm and deliberate, spoke as Rob and Michelle tried to assert control. The sudden scream, glass breaking, and hurried footsteps all occurred under the shadow of someone who had carefully orchestrated the attack, leaving the victims with no chance. Investigators realized that the blackout was not just a cover, it was a timed execution, a meticulously planned window that Nick had partially predicted, partially feared, and partially participated in. The case now rests on fragmented truths: Romy's letter, Michelle's audio, Nick's warnings, the 17-minute blackout, the mysterious Leo, and the neighbor's recording. Each thread is undeniable, yet incomplete. No single narrative explains the full horror, leaving investigators and the public grappling with the question of what really happened inside the Reiner estate that night.
Why somebody is the way he is, and why that person feels the need to make yourself feel better at some point or other. We do talk about it that way. I don't have any history in terms of, there's a string of alcoholics or a string of, drug abusers or anything like that.
String of problems, though.
Though definitely a string of problems, that's for sure.
The Reiner double homicide is more than a story of tragedy. It is a labyrinth of premonitions, secrets, and unanswered questions. Every new piece of evidence, the hidden recordings, failed calls, unsent emails, and cryptic letters, reveals a family trapped between fear and defiance. Nick's biometric spikes, Romy's courage, and Michelle's warnings suggest that someone with intimate knowledge orchestrated the murders, while others were paralyzed by uncertainty, terror, or complicity. The blackout, carefully timed and executed, hints at an unseen hand, a calculated force that ensured silence prevailed. And yet, despite exhaustive investigation, one voice remains unidentified, one actor unaccounted for, and one truth unresolved. The Reiner estate, once a symbol of stability and legacy, has become a testament to the dangers that hide in plain sight: the secrets behind closed doors, the warning signals ignored, and the silence that kills. In the end, this story forces a haunting question: if those closest knew what was coming, who finally allowed it to happen?
Then I think it's a very sad day, because we know that racism hasn't gone away. It's there. But this man has given voice to it. And so we're going to find very carefully how many people really have those feelings.
If you enjoy in-depth coverage of the stories shaping celebrity culture and entertainment, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to stay connected for the next big story.